welcome today. I'm super excited to be here. Why? Today we have a very dynamic, wonderful person with me. We're going to be discussing how to live a dynamic life and discover purpose. There is no sweeter topic to talk about because I want to discover purpose. I want to live a dynamic life. And to have this, we have Dr. Brynn Dombroski. She's here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we
Thank you
share
so
a lot of
much.
things in common. She's a fantastic person. We're both in the John Maxwell Leadership Certified team. Well, she's a CEO of Dynamic Empowerment Solutions and founder of the Autism Partnership Initiative. She's a certified speaker, like I said. She's a trainer, she's a coach, and disc consultant with the Maxwell Leadership team. She empowers people, really, and that's what we all do, empowering people to achieve dynamic success by helping them to identify their passions, purpose, and unique personality style to take them from where they are to where they want to be. Okay, so she's a neuroscientist and board certified behavior analyst, and she's worked with children, adolescents, and adults. Can you please tell us more about yourself? I can't do you justice, please. Let us get to know you.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be on your channel. So thank you. So as far as me, I would say I started out knowing that my purpose was to help people. And I know that sounds pretty broad. So as life would have it, there's always these opportunities, and you have to be very careful on discerning what's an opportunity versus a distraction. And so I found myself constantly seeing opportunities for leadership. So even in graduate school, so there was an opportunity to be the class representative. There was the opportunity to be class president of this or that, or president of the Beta Club, the National Junior Honor Society, the National Honor Society, and then even on through college, Phi Theta Kappa, and then the Resident Housing Association. So I've always found myself in these leadership positions, and I always knew that somewhere along the way, I was going to pursue a higher education, that I was going to obtain a doctorate in something that would allow me to open a holistic mental, physical, and emotional well-being center. And in my mind, I thought I wanted to help everyone, but fate had it differently. And as I was in my graduate program, or actually my undergraduate at Florida Gulf Coast University, one of my psychology professors had set up an internship opportunity with Eden Autism Services of Florida. And
Wow.
this was a great opportunity for me because, number one, graduate applications really look for internships, and I thought this is perfect. And it was with for at the time, autism was kind of new. Like, people really didn't know what that was. I had kind of knew what it was, but I didn't really know. And Eden allowed me to experience the full spectrum of individuals with autism. So I had the opportunity to work with children, adolescents, and adults, all with varying difficulties with autism. So some that were severely impacted, some that were just mildly impacted by their diagnosis. And it was during that time that it just became so clear to me that my new mission wasn't just to help everyone, but to really focus on helping this population, because what I saw was these families, many of these families were, pretty well invested in having, a lucrative business or education or future for themselves. And they had this plan for their child, and then their child gets this diagnosis, and they just put everything on hold and invest everything they have in their child. And they forget about their own health, their own mental well-being. Their other children, unfortunately, also sometimes, don't get as much attention because they're just really just focused on, I need to figure out what can I do to, help my child with autism have a much better life. And so that really kind of, for me, just kind of hit in the heart, where I just felt like I want to be able to do more research in this area. I want to be able to help these families. I want to help these individuals. I want everyone to have a much better quality life. And so from there, I was looking for graduate programs, and that took me to the University of Louisville School of Medicine, where I obtained my doctorate in anatomical sciences and neurobiology. So I usually just tell people neuroscience. It's a little easier to say. So I had the really unique privilege of working in the neurocognitive lab. My mentor was Dr. Manuel Casanova, and I got to I got to be a part of a lot of really cool experiments. We were doing repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, neurofeedback. I even got to work with our computer vision engineering department, and we did facial recognition studies with autistic individuals and neurotypicals. And we even had an opportunity to be a part of the Autism Tissue Program, which is a organization that was funded because a lot of individuals with autism were dying prematurely, and there was a need to do some research to determine what's different about the autistic brain versus neurotypical. And so families who have a child with autism can be a part of this organization where if their child should die prematurely, they would donate their child's brain to research. And so I had the opportunity to look under a microscope at the differences between an autistic brain and neurotypical brain. And then we also looked at the different brain structures, like underneath different types of equipment, to really identify what are some of the unique differences in autism and neurotypical. And then from there, my favorite experiment that we did was working with Dr. Mel Kaplan, who unfortunately has since passed, but this man was absolutely brilliant. And he was a brilliant optometrist who just saw things through a different perspective. And he taught me everything I know about vision in terms of prism lenses and vision motor therapy, and how so many people, not just individuals with disabilities or developmental disabilities, not just individuals with autism, but a lot of people that are walking around today, neurotypical, could have vision issues that are preventing them from accessing success. And yeah, and that's what really that inspired me to continue to work in the field of autism. I did that for a little bit. Then I actually went back to school yet again, got a second master's in special education with a focus in autism and behavior analysis. And I work as a neuroscientist and a board certified behavior analyst. And I do contract work in that area. And I also, as you had mentioned, speak, coach, and train in leadership, and really focus on helping neurodiverse adults and parents of neurodiverse kids.
Yeah, wow. That is a lot. And thank you
It
for
is.
sharing that.
Thank you.
You've gone through a lot of training just to help people. And like you said, sometimes we are like, we want to help the whole world. And God says, nah, this is where I want you to help.
Yeah.
I actually had a few friends that their children were autistic, and it was really hard. Hard
Yes.
for the parents, hard for the child. And in fact, my daughter was in the class with one of the children, and she would always help the child, maybe sometimes to dress up, sometimes to wear the shoe properly. The parent had to get a special teacher to be in the class with that child. But many parents are going through this challenge, and some don't even know. Can you speak to us? What exactly is autism? How can a parent know that their child, what are the signs that the parents can look out for to say, hey, maybe this might be the case? Can you
Yeah.
tell us more about that?
Sure. So autism is actually a neurodevelopmental condition, and there's three particular criteria. So one is a deficit in communication, two is a deficit in social interactions, and three is either a repetitive or restrictive behavior, or it could be ritualistic thinking. So those three are what really make up the diagnosis of autism, and that looks different across the spectrum. So you may have individuals who have vocal speech and are very articulate and can function pretty well in society. And then you have those other individuals who do not have vocal speech, who maybe don't have any form of functional communication. And those are the ones who you might see being taught how to use something like the picture exchange communication system, or an alternative or augmentative and alternative communication device. So we call those AAC devices, so that they have a way to communicate more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're talking about some children actually, like I also have one of my nephew that when he was growing up, it was okay. Then in his teenage years, he will say, I don't want to go to school. I'm just overwhelmed. And the parents were like, no, you have to. You're this, you're that. You're just wasting your life on this. Until someone said, hey, maybe. And then they went to the hospital and they saw that he had ADHD, sorry.
Yeah.
And then he had some form of autism. And they
Mhm.
were like, oh my God, this child is not it's not his fault. He actually had this that is just manifesting in the teenage years because of the overwhelm of all the work that they're doing. Can you
Yes.
speak more to this? Because many parents are in this dilemma to say, hey, this boy is just lazy. Get off your butt.
Yep.
Can you talk more to that?
Absolutely. And that's really kind of my sweet spot is helping parents who are stressed and trying to figure out what's going on with my kid, and
Yeah.
kids who are just like, I don't know why I can't do the things other kids do. And so in some cases it could be that they have ADHD, it could be that they have autism, and it presents differently for them. So some kiddos, they may actually have been a little bit delayed in their speech, but maybe they were watching some type of programming, some educational programming, and that's how they picked up their speech. And then
Mm.
it may have started off with them scripting everything that they hear, and then they were able to, kind of encode that language in their brain, and then they were able to pair that up with what was going on in the real environment, and they just started developing pretty normally, is what it seems, right? But really, the way that they started out life might have been a little different, and it just seemed a little quirky. So a lot of times people overlook things if all the other milestones are being met. And so a lot of times kiddos go undiagnosed because there's not a lot of demands being placed on them. So kindergarten, for example, it's mostly fun, lots of, arts and crafts activities, lots of, enrichment, and just kind of playing games to get to know each other, and, imitating behaviors of others and the teacher, and not, like I said, not a lot of demands are being placed there. Now, once we start getting into third grade, fourth grade, we're starting to place the demand of, you have to write full sentences, you have to be able to learn how to multiply and divide, and you have to tell time, and now you have to learn how to use money. Like, these skills are more complex, and if you don't have some of the foundational skills needed to be able to build these additional skills on top of that, it's very strenuous. So if you can kind of think about, like, if you're building a block tower and you don't have a firm foundation and you just try to build a tower straight up, it's eventually gonna fall over. And that's kind of how the brain's functioning with an individual who doesn't have all the foundation, is that
Yeah.
you have a strength and you keep adding to that strength, adding to that strength, but all these
Mhm.
other skills have not been developed yet. And so that's what we see. So with individuals on the spectrum, if otherwise, their behaviors are pretty good,
Mhm.
parents haven't really had to discipline them much. You might see that all of a sudden they start becoming really frustrated. You start seeing outbursts. There's a lot more tantrums. They don't know how to process those feelings and emotions. They might become a little bit more aggressive towards others. They may even, they get so frustrated that they don't know how to say, I'm frustrated. So they might throw their pencil or rip up their paper. And again, these could be indications that there's an underlying learning condition, it could be a developmental condition that just hasn't been identified or diagnosed yet.
Mm. True. Thank you so much. And I was listening to um recently a podcast, and I like what you said, that sometimes the children will have challenging behaviors because now they have a lot of demands on their learning, on their time, on their thinking, and they
Mhm.
just burst out. And what that person said, I think I must have written it down somewhere. It's not here right now, but what she was saying was, you don't become tougher on challenging kids or children with challenging this conditions. People are like, you're just not well behaved. Come on, sit down. But what she's saying is there are different approaches
Yeah.
to helping those children with challenging conditions. Many a times this is what you see. You see the outburst, you see maybe they are just angry, but at the back, what is in their mind are things like, I can't learn well, I forget things, I feel irritable and all that. How do you think parents should approach these children? What would you say to them?
I would say the number one skill that people overlook is problem solving. It doesn't come naturally. It's not something that's taught in schools. Like, I parents have to be mindful that we're always wanting to model for our kiddos our thinking process. And that might look like speaking out loud. And maybe it starts with playing a game. Like, maybe you're playing a game of Connect Four and you're demonstrating that, okay, well, it looks like you have all of your black checkers here. And if I go here, I can block you. But if I go here, you might block me and then I won't get to go. And like, actually talking through that and helping the child to kind of see through your perspective what it is that you're thinking. Because a lot of times kids start developing and they don't have problem solving skills. They don't have strategies because no one's directly taught them how to do things. They do whatever they do that gets the results, and it may not be the most effective or most socially appropriate way to access it. So for example, our kiddos on the spectrum that are more severely impacted by their autism, they may be physically aggressive when it comes to play because they know that if I want to play with this toy, then I can grab it and now it's in my possession and I can play with it. And so we might have to teach them like, hey, you know, this toy is not available right now. Or we could play with this toy if we share with this peer, and teaching them these skills, or teaching them to be able to tolerate not being first, teaching them, you know, there's other games and activities you might be interested in. And so just thinking of creative ways to engage your child in problem solving skills, offering other alternatives, and just really trying to enrich them, like teach them things that maybe you feel could be a little bit advanced for them. That's okay. You'll learn pretty quickly if it's too advanced or not, or you might be pleasantly surprised that they pick up on it really quickly.
Wow, 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 wow. You guys, when you see me looking at that, I'm actually writing. You've given us so much stuff, you know, and I like what you said, that there are different ways in helping children with challenges. It's not to be tough on them, but to be able to teach them life skills, communication skills, problem-solving skills, things that would enrich them, giving them different options, you know, of being creative with either their thoughts, their approach to life, or even sometimes how can you navigate those challenges that will give a better outcome. Oh my goodness, thank you. And the other thing that I had is, it might even be parents. They've grown and they didn't know that they had autism, and now they're having challenges and they're like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I not learning the way I used to learn? And a lot of parents watching us right now might be having those challenges and they feel frustrated. What do you say about that?
Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting is since I still do a lot of contract work with families who have a child who has some behavioral concerns, typically the process is, let's evaluate to see whether or not your child qualifies for an autism diagnosis. And then once the child does qualify for an autism diagnosis, that's usually when the family very, you know, transparently shares with me, I think I might have autism. I struggled with this when I was a kid, you know, and it might be that, you know, they struggle with sensitivity to sound, you know, like when they hear loud noises or there's a lot of screaming, or, you know, if you walk into like the food court in a mall, that might be too loud for some individuals. And then you might see them like cover their ears, or you might see them make, you know, these faces like they're not comfortable. And they may just, you know, exhibit all of these like nervous, anxious behaviors. And then they might, you know, immediately remove themselves. And depending on who you're with, you know, that might seem totally appropriate. In some cases, if you just kind of suddenly dip out, I think some people might be like, well, that was odd. Like, why would you do that? And so here as an adult thinking like, oh man, I thought my child was, you know, exhibiting some odd behaviors, but then thinking back, they're like, I did that too, you know. And sometimes parents, they start to think about, oh, you know, I engage in some repetitive behaviors too, or I engage in that ritualistic thinking too. And you know, in a way, it helps them to, you know, be a little bit more empathetic towards their child, because they're starting to see like, oh, like I understand where you're coming from now. And then the other aspect is, you know, really just helping them to kind of learn a little bit more about themselves. Like even as an adult, now that you're starting to realize that you most likely have a diagnosis as well, you know, what are the things that worked for you? And a lot of times it's rote memorization. That is what helped people to learn the things that they needed to learn. Sometimes it was, you know, they had, you know, a tutor, or they had, you know, maybe they found sports to be a great outlet, and they had a lot of coaches that coached them. They found whatever their purpose was, and somehow they were able to put all of their effort and energy into that, and they didn't realize that they were quote unquote different until they had their own child, and then they're like, okay, I'm seeing that my child has these struggles, and then they start to see they have the same struggles, and now it's just a matter of, we just got to help your child find their purpose too. Everyone has a purpose.
Exactly. And I like the way you segued into people struggling, and there's a pattern. Sometimes we've struggled, we didn't see it. Then we had help along the way. Our children start all that, and we're like, what? And now with the advancement in technology, I think people are beginning to, diagnose autism more, to say, oh, maybe I want to. And people, even though they've been successful a bit in their life, but they're not seeing success in every area of their life, And I like the fact that what you do is just to help people. You do the assessment for them, you help them to find their strengths, help them to find what they can do better in terms of their weaknesses, help them to have the dynamic life that will fulfill purpose, because we all have purpose. Now, what can parents do? What are the 1, 2, 3 things that parents can do for themselves and even for their children to be able to have success in those areas? What should they look out for? For me, sometimes I'm just like, okay, my children will be like, Mom, you are just, sometimes I'll do one thing. I'm like, it's so loud. They're like, Mom, it's not loud, it's just you.
Yep. Gosh.
I have to learn something and I forget what I've learned. I'm like, how come? Or I just get a brain block all of a sudden, or I see my daughter doing some weird things. I'm like, oh my God, I think I was like that before. But we want to discover really our purpose, no matter what our age is.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Either for our children, ourselves, as parents, as young people, whatever it is, we want to be able to live a life that, as the changes are coming, we are still able to be the best version of ourselves and live in our purpose at that time. So what would you say to that person that does not even know that they have those challenges?
Yeah.
What are the first things they should do?
Absolutely. The first thing I would recommend is self-awareness. And so if you're starting to see that, you know what, things just are a little bit more challenging for me than it seems it is for other people. So consider, either depending on what your challenges are, if you feel like, you're able to drive, you're able to go to the grocery store, you're independent, maybe you just want to find out a little bit more about your personality style. And the DISC assessment is a great assessment for that. And it's very simple once you understand the different personality styles. So D for very direct, very decisive. And then the I personality style is very influential. The S is somebody who cherishes security in relationships, security in finances. And then that C personality style, they're very compliant. They're very specific when it comes to the data, the research, like the I's have to be dotted, the T's have to be crossed. And so when you kind of see like, all right, there's 4 distinct personalities, and that at any given time we are any of that combination based on our upbringing. It's really great to kind of do an assessment, find out where exactly are you on the personality spectrum. And then once you know where you are, you can kind of see those patterns of behavior in others, and especially in your children. And when you start to see, oh, my child's not being defiant, my child's just somebody who has a very D personality style. They're very direct, so maybe it's a matter of, okay, so maybe we need to teach them how to be a little more of an S or a little more of an I. And maybe, maybe a child who seems a little bit needy. They really, they're constantly wanting to be involved with other people and other things, or maybe they always want to be mom and dad by mom's and dad's side, and they feel like their child's not independent enough. Maybe they're just very strong in their S, and relationships are just very important to them. And so we want to teach them how to be a little bit more independent by maybe providing some individual projects. Maybe those I personality kiddos are the ones who are very influential. Those are the ones who might come across as having ADHD. They're kind of like, oh, look at this lady's dress. It's so pretty. Oh, I love your shoes. Those are so great. Where'd you get those from? And then maybe they're like, oh yeah, I have a math test later today. Oh, and I have a spelling test on Friday. Oh, did you see that movie? So if a kid is presenting like that, they may actually just be very strong in their I personality style. And they may need some tools to help them be successful, like using a calendar. asking for people to help keep them accountable because that's where they struggle. And then our C personality style, this is going to be a lot of individuals who really don't like to interact much with other people because they find their strengths lie in task. Give them as many tasks as possible to complete, and they feel very empowered to be able to say, I completed this, I completed this, I completed that, and then teach them how to be okay, being in those social situations. So give them some tips. So helping them to find common ground. So most people, watch movies, most people have read books. So helping them to identify, like, what's something that you've read or something you've watched that you could maybe talk about in a conversation with somebody. So that way it's not so personal, but it's something that you could share with others. Or maybe there's a sport that they play, and just really giving them the tools. Like, here's some areas of conversation that you can use when you're interacting with others. So the first, as you had said, like the first thing I'd recommend to families is become self-aware of your own strengths and weaknesses, become aware of your child's strengths and weaknesses, and be looking for opportunities to help them to be able to manage that personality style. So, with each personality style, we have strengths and weaknesses. Now, granted, it's always, Dr. John C. Maxwell says, like, we really want to focus on your strengths, like find someone else who can help you with your weaknesses. Well, in the meantime, until you're able to hire somebody to do that work for you, figure out what are some tools and what are some strategies that are going to help you to manage the skills that you're not so strong in, just so that you're able to get to the next level in your life. And the other thing I'd recommend for families is just continually be looking for opportunities of self-growth and development for yourself. And if you are modeling that, if you are getting into a new hobby, or you're reading books, or you're learning a new skill, maybe you're learning a new language on Duolingo, share that with your kids. Let your kids see that you are a lifelong learner, and that learning doesn't stop when grade school stops. It's a continuous process, and be very vulnerable with your kids. When you make a mistake, let them know, like, hey, mommy made a mistake. Hey, daddy made a mistake. That was not the right way to say this, and validate everyone's feelings, even though you may have said something that was not intended to come across the way it did. Say, I understand that you're hurt. That's not how I meant it. This is how I meant it. And then let's talk about what could we say or do differently next time. So just always dissecting a social situation, like what went well, what could we do better next time, and just having those touch points with your child to make sure that it's okay for them to come to you to ask questions and to get clarification on maybe a social interaction that didn't feel like it went well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh
you're
my
welcome.
goodness. This has been so empowering, and I love the fact that you really started from number one, be self-aware. Who are you? What's your own personality style? What is your child's own? And you really dissected that. Everybody, you've learned a lot. Are you a D? What's your child? Are you dominant? Are you the person that is influential, inspirational? S, are you a stable, secure person? And how is your child as well? C, compliant. She has given you everything. So make sure you listen to this again to see what is a personality style, what is mine that helps you to be more empathetic with their situation, and what can I do? She's giving you everything. The second thing is look for opportunities for self-growth. Let your students see that you're also growing as well. You are reading, you are learning, and you are transferring that knowledge to them and then applying them. I love the fact that you also spoke about being vulnerable. Parents sometimes just want to be like, okay, I got this. Let your child know that sometimes you make mistakes. Let your child also know that, hey, in this situation, I hear you, this is it. And then speak the truth about that situation. Because at the end of the day, they can see you care when you listen to them, and they can connect with you. And you also spoke about being able to just connect with your child at every point in time. Thank you. This is so wonderful. Now, I know that this is your sweet spot where you help parents, where you help their children just to be able to find themselves, right? where they're able to be a better version of themselves. You do that assessment for them on a professional level so that not just relying on what we just said, being able to really find where their own sweet spot is. So where can people find you? People that want to learn more, do this assessments, be coached, be mentored, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my company is Dynamic Empowerment Solutions, and you could just type www.dynamicempowermentsolutions.com. The phone number is 855-573-9473, and that's 855-573-9473. And just going to the website, I also have a tab where you can connect and just put in your contact information. I'll get an email from you, and then I'll reach back out and we can talk about what are, some of the concerns you have for yourself? What are the concerns? And maybe you're a parent who's, concerned about your kiddo. We can talk a little bit about that and decide what's the best plan of action moving forward. And sometimes, after we figure out what our personality style is, we may find that there are other areas of our life that may have, may require additional diagnoses. And if that's the case, I'm more than happy to help families to identify a provider who can do those additional assessments to help them learn for sure. Like, do you maybe have autism? Do you have ADHD? Is there some other underlying learning condition that you have not been diagnosed with, that once you know that you have this diagnosis, you can then create new tools in your toolbox to help you be able to live a more dynamic life, because now you know how to make life work for you instead of you just kind of living day to day through the world around you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Brynn. This has been so wonderful. I've enjoyed my time with you. So what are you doing next? What do you have in your calendar next?
Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed my time with you as well. And as far as my next event, I am spearheading the Autism Partnership Initiative second quarterly event. So we have 4 events per year. And this one is going to be virtual. So it'll take place Tuesday, April 23rd at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's only for 1 hour. Now, what's really cool about the Autism Partnership Initiative is it is a forum where people who provide services or resources for individuals with autism all come together. And these are all experts in their field. So if you're a family who feels like you just, there's no services out there, or you don't know where to go for services, go to the Autism Partnership Initiative. We are specifically handpicking professionals in their field, and we are asking them questions that a lot of family members will ask. If you're a clinician, if you're an educator, maybe you're a teacher or a principal, or maybe you're a doctor, a pediatrician, a dentist, and you work with individuals on the spectrum and you'd like to learn more, or you see additional behaviors and you're like, that's really outside of my scope of practice, who can I send them to? Come to the Autism Partnership Initiative. We're going to have a panel of experts there that you can ask these questions. You'll learn a little bit about their skill set. We've got, people in fitness who work with individuals with autism. We have people who are in occupational therapy. We have people who provide housing, so there's just a variety of different resources and services that are available that a lot of people are unaware of. And the purpose of the Autism Partnership Initiative is to educate, advocate, and inform, so that we are helping people to connect and be able to access all of those resources and information so that they could be more informed and help their loved ones to have a more fulfilled quality of life.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, because people are looking for those resources. Yes. And it's like a one-stop find the things you need. People have to go to this website, that website to find everything. But so thank you, everybody. Next week, make sure that is a 1-hour event. You can't miss it. But most importantly, apart from that event, you need to go on the website.
Yes.
You need to go there and find those resources that would help you to have a better quality of life. Caregivers is really hard both on the person and the caregivers as well. But when you can have that solution, those resources that would help you, equip you, improve your lives, you can't do without it. So thank you so much, Dr. Brynn. This has been wonderful. Everybody, I appreciate you being here. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.